Hello everybody, this is Loci WayOfLoci and welcome to the No Hit Podcast. Here it is my job to interview the extraordinary people in gaming, the hitless runners who beat difficult games without taking a single hit or point of damage, speedrunners completing games in mere minutes that would normally take hours, or those who have finished games completely blindfolded, or the amazing content creators and developers out there producing the engaging and entertaining content and games that we all enjoy. Today's guest is Muckworm, that's spelled Muckworm on YouTube, Twitch and Twitter. Muck is a hitless challenge runner predominantly of the games Cuphead by Studio MDHR and the Blasphemous series by TheGameKitchen, both renowned for their difficulty, as well as having completed several other runs in Celeste, Knight and Haiku the Robot. In this conversation, we go into the increasingly difficult no-hit runs Muck has completed in Cuphead, and his currently named God Run that he's trying to complete, the appeal of the Blasphemous series and his approach to learning difficult boss movesets, and the huge collaborative nature of hitless challenge runs, and much more. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Muckworm. Right, Muck, thanks very much for taking the time out to come on the podcast today. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing good. It's weird being back in a sense.
Yes.
Right, so we're going to go into all things Damageless, hitless, challenge running, but I did want to start on, I guess, a more basic question, which is, where did your name come from? Where did Muckworm come from?
That's a funny story, and it actually takes about 20 minutes. Are you ready?
Sure, let's go.
No, actually, there is no like story. I just like how it sounds.
Fair. Yeah, that's fine as well. Right, we'll go straight into it then. So, hitless, damageless, that's what we're going to be talking about today. What was the start? What was like your introduction to either a no damage run, a hitless run? What was the first steps?
Well, that's an interesting story. I started playing Cuphead from the release date, and I've been waiting for this game for a long time since I saw the announcement on E3. I think it was E3 2013. I was really amazed by how this game looks, and once it got released, I actually just started playing it, and I kept playing it like basically until this day. So when I completed all achievements in the game, I started thinking what I can do more because I really like the game. Not only like the music, which is awesome, how it looks, but also gameplay was like remarkable for me. So I started doing speedruns. I was doing any percent like for 1 year and a half, but since I was like kind of new to speedruns, I didn't do any like streaks, speedrun tech. Mostly I was trying not to die. And once I got like 36 minutes, I burned out from speedrunning and dropped it for good. And after a while, when the COVID started, I just lost my job at that time. I didn't know what to do, and I decided to stream. And when I was streaming, I didn't know what to do, so that was like some games like Fall Guys maybe or Fortnite. And then I thought maybe I should be somewhat consistent with the content I do. And I saw that I have like 1,000 plus hours in Cuphead. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll do Cuphead then. So what I was doing is I was doing like S ranks with P shooter only. Then I tried like doing King Dice hater percent, like all King Dice mini bosses in a row, hitless with P shooter only for S rank. And then I remembered about the guy who did hitless run of Cuphead back in, I think it was on release, like not long after the release of Cuphead, in probably 2 or 3 months. Sol, there was a guy Sol. His name Fight. He is marked on Team Hitless website as Sol, and he was the first hitless runner of Cuphead. And I just decided to just go this way, and I started running hitless Cuphead on stream. And there is a Grondius, world record holder for multiple cup categories, and he was kind of my friend. And I told him about that I'm doing hitless runs, and he said, "Oh, you know Sublime? Because Sublime is also working on that." I'm like, "No, I don't know this guy." And he said that currently Sublime is working on P shooter only, all flags. Wow, that's actually pretty cool because I was doing unrestricted runs at this point.
Okay.
And then I came to Sublime stream and said, "Hi, I'm at PB2," and he said, "Well, then you're a legend." And this is how it all started. And I remember I mentioned in the chat that would be cool if there was some like website like speedrun.com where people post their hitless runs. And somebody dropped the teamhitless.com link in the chat, and that's basically how it all started for me.
Yeah, because I know Team Hitless has grown quite a bit now and it's included quite a few games, but in terms of early days, Cuphead was one of the few ones they added after like the Dark Souls, which is like where Team Hitless
I
sort of started, didn't they?
I think at this point there were only Souls games, and Hollow Knight just got added, and
Yeah.
Sublime was working towards adding Cuphead. And since people were telling him that it's probably too much RNG and it's inconsistent to be a hitless game, he decided to prove they're wrong and actually started doing the runs. And
Yeah.
I was the first person who got into Team Hitless through Cuphead, basically, because I was
Oh,
at
nice.
BB2 at this point when there were like discussions of adding the game to the team.
Made the mark in the Team Hitless history books kind of thing.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of because I sort of joined the area when it was Sekiro, when like Sekiro was the newest game, and there was discussions back then because when Sekiro was introduced, there was just go with base standard for people listening. Like hitless runs is mainly where you've got to either dodge all the attacks or parry attacks,
Mm-hmm.
and in Sekiro, the mechanics in it is they changed it quite a lot from the previous Dark Souls, from Software had produced previously, and in Sekiro they heavily focused on the parry aspect in that combat style. So when it came as a game in Team Hitless, which is a community of hitless runners, and it can be as a community where you can be accepted by submitting hitless runs, and within that, when Sekiro came out, there was a huge discussion whether
Oh, I can
the ability
imagine.
to yeah, because of the parry system was the main thing. Well, people found that, or at the time, people said that was way too difficult. And so people said you could block and do it like that, and no damage would be basically put the same as no hit. And there was such a discussion about that. So it's interesting to hear there was that sort of discussion around the introduction of Cuphead as well, saying there is too much RNG or those sorts of things in you in Sublime. When's the effort of going, yeah, we can do this?
Yeah, I heard that people still arguing about Sekiro rules because they're really controversial and many disagreements still around. So
Yeah,
that's why.
if you want to start an argument to do Sekiro Hitless, just bring up Armored Warrior Stagger,
Oh my god, yeah.
which a few people who may be listening may immediately understand what that is. And it's but anyway, I shall go on next. So, what was it about the Hitless or Damageless? I think it's specific, like Cuphead, it's more so Damageless than Hitless. Focus that you enjoyed more over the previous speedrunning that you'd done.
Well, for me, it was more about challenge rather than speedrunning. I know that speedruns are part of challenge runs, so making
Mm-hmm.
way through the game as fast as possible. But I don't know. I don't think I'm really like made for speedruns. I do some hater percent speedruns sometimes. For those who doesn't know, hater percent is basically you put the timer, you go through the base game with the starting weapon, and you have to earn the highest marks and do all kind as many bosses. So basically, the speedrun version of the God Run I'm doing right now. That's probably the only category that interests me, and I just naturally became good at it because I do something similar in hitless running. I don't know. For me, hitless running is you don't have to sweat, and I think speedrunning is much more intense and requires for you a lot of precise inputs. Where in hitless running, there's like room for different strategies and rerouting and stuff like this. This is what I like the most about hitless, that you actually can take your time. You can go to a bathroom in the middle of the run or
Yeah.
something like that. So maybe in the future I will dive into speedruns when I'll run out of categories to do, but let's not talk about it at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that aspect. I do want to go into the different categories, but I just want to add to that point that it may seem weird for people listening who don't do hitless runs, may go, it's more quote unquote more relaxing doing hitless runs than speed runs. And the way I've normally put it before is that you can take your time going through a running section for a boss in some cases, but in speedrunning, it's every second there is the pressure of doing things precisely every single time. whilst in a hitless run, depending on the run, of course, there are moments of extreme focus, like on certain bosses where you need to like lock in, and some bosses are cheesable. Maybe not so much in Cuphead, but in certain games it can be okay. This boss is basically free, so I can relax through it. But it's not the same in a speed run where every moment sort of counts, and you have that pressure on you all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
But going on to those categories, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've done over 20 plus hitless, damageless runs in the game Cuphead to various degrees.
That's correct. But I wanna make sure you understand that most of them were DLC runs, which basically like six bosses long. So I don't want to say they're not as challenging as the base game. Actually, one of the runs, which is DLC expert S rank speedrunner only, was probably one of the hardest I've ever done. It's so inconsistent. It looks like developers didn't design it to be beaten this way. So it involved a lot of RNG moment, and it was really frustrating to do that. And
which boss? Sorry,
I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. The Glumstone the Giant and Mortimer Freeze are very bad for Pishuder only. Especially the thing is, by the way, there was a controversial thing. Like Sublime proved that base game doesn't have the moments where it's pure RNG. So let's say we get the worst RNG possible, and you can just drop down your gamepad because you can't do anything. That didn't happen to the base game, but in the DLC, if you play Glumstone the Giant as Cuphead or Magman, you actually can get unavoidable hit in the end if you get better RNG. So that's why if you do DLC runs, people usually put a Glumstone as soon as possible in the split, so you can reset early.
Is there any benefit of using Miss Chalice, or do you normally not use the Cuphead or Mugman for those sort of runs?
Well, Miss Chalice made game much easier. For first, she has invincible dash and double jump, which gives you a lot more, room for shenanigans. You're more flexible, and if you see that some projectile runs, you're about to land on the ground, and you can see that projectile is going there. Usually, if you play as Cuphead or Magman, the only thing you can do is to stall in the air by EXing, throwing an EX move. But for Miss Chalice, you can just jump again. So it makes it much more easier. And also, she has integrated smoke dash, basically, which allows you to not take damage when you dash through something. So it's definitely a plus. But I'm as an old school Cuphead gamer, I still can get used to Miss Chalice, to be honest. And I find it a bit cheesable, to use her. But for some of the challenges, for example, King Sleep, it's a must. It's so much easier to do it with Chalice. So yeah. I kind of use it just for this, and Angel and Demon, the secret mini boss.
So for so that's basically the DLC mini game, like the Mausoleum version, those King games kind of things.
Yeah, the parry challenges. But the new players of the new Hitless runners use Miss Chalice a lot. It really simplifies a lot of bosses. So I would say it became more accessible to get any % run with the DLC release.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty free in order to go there, because into it you just have to run through one run and go on a Mausoleum, and then you're basically in the DLC.
Yeah, you can just be there in no time. And also you get 5 additional free coins from DLC, which you can spend on weapons. So it also significantly simplifies the run.
I'm just thinking the initial game in the DLC, the pawns. I imagine that's hellish using Cuphead.
Oh yeah.
Or is it not too bad?
They're actually pretty bad. I think it took me 50 hours only grinding to somehow understand what to do and to react properly, but they're pretty bad. They can do the delay between jumpings of the spawns is different, and they can just drop on your head 4 in a row, and you can just run out of moves, and yeah, that can happen. So that's why Glumstone and Pawns should be as early as possible.
Before we go into a couple of specific runs I want to talk about, mentioned how much you'd played before getting into hitless running, and I don't know if this figure is accurate or not, but on your Twitch thing it says 5,000 plus hours in Cuphead. Is that
Let me
circuit.
see how many hours I have now. It says,
Oh, okay.
yeah, 500, 5,300 hours. Also, I did it on Windows version and on Switch for all achievements and on Xbox. So you can
Oh, okay.
probably
So
add
there's
like 100 hours more. Oh, yeah.
some hours hidden away on those other consoles as well.
Yeah. So around 5,400 probably.
Is there anything specific, I guess, any more so than what you said earlier, what brought you to the game initially, that keeps you with the game? Because obviously you're continuously doing harder and harder runs, and we'll go into the God run you're doing in a minute shortly. But is there anything specific that keeps you coming back into run after run after run?
Well, I guess it's like a sports interest at this point. So I want to challenge myself more and more, add in more and more restrictions. Honestly, what I do
Mm.
is I just follow the Sublime's path. When I saw Sublime first time, when what he was doing, he was like close to doing the God Run. Like after I met him, I think in 2 months or so, he was working on the God Run, and I told him that, how do you feel doing Cuphead? Like you're the only guy who doing this shit, and he said, yeah, it's pretty lonely here, not gonna lie. And I just told him, you know what? I'm gonna do the God Run one day, and what I'm doing right now is basically fulfilling my destiny. Let's say I don't know. I feel that Sublime for me is a teacher and inspiration, and he actually helped me
Mm.
a lot with the strats. We were like hopping on a Discord call like with you right now, and I was sharing the screen, and he told me like what's the best strat for this boss or what I could do, and I'm like forever grateful to Sublime for that.
Since we're talking about it a little bit, do you want to go into the details of what the God run is in Cuphead?
Yeah, the God Run is basically the ultimate hitless category for the base game. When I'm saying the base game, it means the pre-DLC game,
Hmm.
so there's no DLC. It includes 200% completion, full completion, which you can achieve only on expert difficulty, which is the highest difficulty in the game. And for that challenge, you can use only pea shooter, so you cannot use any charms, super arts, or mini bombs. And for every level in the game, you have to achieve the highest ranks. It means for every boss, you need to get S rank, which includes 3 required parries, 6 EX moves, and your health shouldn't be decreased. And for run and gun levels, you need to achieve pacifist rank, which implies for you to not kill anyone. And so you basically just don't use your weapon while going through that. The thing is, for pacifist rank, you can take damage, and it still will be the highest rank. But for this specific God Run, you're not allowed to take any damage. So that's an additional
Yeah.
restriction. And also, you need to do all King Dice mini bosses in one sitting. Yeah, for King Dice, you can do just 3 mini bosses, but specifically for this challenge, you have to do all of them. And I've been on this challenge for 2 years already. Well, I was hopping off and on. I was feeling burned out from this challenge, and I just dropped it, and then came back to that after half a year or something. But for now, I'm at PB1 in this challenge, and I think it was day 150. Like the last stream was day 150 of this challenge. So I'm
Hmm.
feeling super close, but at the same time, I'm feeling super far from completion because it's been some kind of mental block maybe for me. But I feel that this run for me is some ultimate run. I've been working towards this 4 years. I'm doing hitless runs. And to be honest, I kind of don't want to get it because after that I will feel a bit empty. You know what I mean? So
Because
I
you've done,
know
yeah, that.
I know
Go on,
that
sorry.
that there are more challenges, especially Bafanda is another Cuphead god. He have done the version of this run, but with DLC included, and
Oh, wow.
he said that he doesn't recommend that to me. But I mean, I think I'll have no choice, right, other than doing
Mm.
that in the future. So yeah.
Well, they might just scratch that itch into of the sports analogy you were saying. Once you've done that, or there's just one extra level to go now,
Exactly.
so
Yes. Exactly.
be tempted by it. So on in that mini boss with the King Dice mini boss, there's 9 of them potentially to go through. If you miss hit a dice, do you have to restart, or is that what's the rules around that? Or I guess you can go into replay, can't you? As long as you hit it right.
Well, you can still hit a start over. There's start
Mm.
over spot before the actual card smash, the last phase of King dies. But
Mm.
yeah, if you didn't hit it, you have to you have to complete the fight, and then you have to start
Mm.
over and do it properly. So
Oh, okay. So you
so
have to finish that fight that you've just done.
until you're hitless, you're fine. There's that thing.
Okay.
For some of the bosses, you can get really bad RNG, and you will not be able to get S rank. For example, in Calamaria, you can get parries only in the first phase, and if you get unfortunate RNG and you'll get, let's say, just 2, you will not get it in time. For S rank, it needs to be under 2 minutes 10 seconds. And for example, if you just completed all other requirements and finished in 2 minutes 14 seconds, you get A+, and you just have to start over. But until you're hitless, you can retry as many times as you want.
So the main difficulty of this run isn't necessarily in a standard like hitless run of being able to complete the entire thing hitless or damageless in Cuphead's case, but the case of you may have to redo a boss continuously until you manage to get that timeline.
And you don't want to redo these bosses, believe me.
So I think everyone Cuphead is quite an infamous game as a difficult platformer, and so everyone has their own thoughts on which are hard bosses during their first playthrough. Some people find certain bosses a lot easier than others, but as someone who has obviously played through these games to such a high degree, who would you put as like the most difficult bosses from a hitless or damageless perspective in this case?
I think Chef Salt Baker is pretty difficult, especially the first and second phase. The last ones are not so bad, but the first one is basically you have to really pay attention to what he's doing in the background, and you at the same time you have to see what's happening in the foreground. So the idea of the boss fight in the first phase is the chef is chopping different vegetables and fruits on the background, and depending on what he's doing, you can predict what the next pattern will be. But the main difficulty is he continues doing something with the fruits and they're overlapping each other. And it creates like countless combinations on what can happen.
Yeah.
And you have to like really, grind and see until you understand how to react to any combinations, because there might be overlapping not even 2, but 3 different fruits. So that makes him the most difficult boss in the game. And I really like that because with the DLC release, they really increased the level. It really feels like Isle 4. So there are like 3 aisles in the base game, and the difficulty increases like with each aisle, and that one feels like significant increase in difficulty. So and the main boss is even harder than the devil, which is funny. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember, because it's been a while since I played it, but you have the combinations of ingredients, and then it's like as soon as you've done a certain level of damage, there's also that flame that sort of appears and tries to track you down onto it. So it's like 3 things you got to keep track of.
Also you have to keep track of flames. There are 2 on experts, so it makes it like crazy. If you're the person who sees this boss the first time, you just see total bullet hell, and it's total chaos, and it's like you think that it's impossible to beat this boss. Not even hitless, just to beat him casually,
Just to be on expert as well.
Just a bit too much, yeah.
I was gonna say I sort of brushed over the other aspect of this sort of run, which is all the run and guns, which I was saying that the hard part is restarting bosses, but I'm guessing some of the run and guns, unless they are done in a certain way every time, but imagine there's more RNG aspects. I remember one level with like the octopus, and I feel there was a ton going on that.
That one. Yeah, this one is pretty tough. But if you're allowed to use weapons, I would say getting down all the levels not a big problem. But in the God Run I'm doing right now, this is the hardest split in the run. Basically, the last section where you ride the octopus, there's a fish behind you which throws projectiles at you at different height, and there are like a bunch of shrimps just getting thrown in your face. And this is nightmare for pacifist because you can't kill anyone. And, that's where
of course, yeah.
That's where you do a Jackie Chan level stuff there. So yeah, probably I had the most hits on this run and gun when I was grinding the God Run. But overall, if you just can use weapon, you can just hold shoot button and basically go forward with this.
But because of the restrictions you've got on that said run, it's hellish.
Yeah, these restrictions are a nightmare, to be honest. I regret doing this run many times, but I mean, I have nothing else to do, and I'm not used to give up, so I'm just continuing until I get it.
I mean, some people may not even know that the pacifist completion exists in the game. I think I found out very late. That's if during the running guns in Cuphead, if you complete them without killing enemies or certain mini bosses in it. Remember the one with the bee that you've got to like dash over the top of?
That's funny. That's funny skip, and a lot of people just say, "Yo, you can just skip that." That's like a meme already.
But yeah, you can complete it and get a P rank. As you said earlier, like if you take damage, if you're slow, I think it doesn't matter as long as you just don't kill anything,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, that's correct.
And as well as doing this run and focus on this run, but you've also done basically weapon only runs, haven't you? Going through each individual weapon throughout the entire thing.
Only for the DLCs. I haven't done that for the base game. But
Okay.
yeah, basically, in terms of categories, you can have countless categories. You can beat the game with nine different weapons. You can use some different charms. There are 6 charms. So basically, if you just multiply all of them, you will have hundreds of different categories. It's possible to do. But I don't know if I want to do weapon on maybe for expert base game in the future. But yeah, that was fun to do it for DLC. The thing is, when the DLC just came out, I thought a category which I want to do, and I had strong opponents such as Bafanda and Sublime, and I thought maybe I'll just pick some different category other than that, so I can get worlds first. And I actually succeeded. I got a DLC any percent P shooter only, and I got it in 9 days, I think. I took a week off. I took a week off at work, a job, and actually was just grinding. And yeah, that was very cool because that was my first world's first in Cup. I got world's first for Blasphemous before, so I already had that feeling, But that was nice to have it for Cuphead. And after that, I just started doing the weapon only runs, and I just quickly ran through all of them because P shooter was the hardest of them. And I think one of the categories, which was I think Converge only DLC 10%, I got first try just because I already had a lot of experience with this.
That's interesting. So, of all the weapons, P shooter was the hardest.
I would say it's more precise. Its bullets is super small, and especially when there are situations when there are a lot of little annoying projectiles coming towards you. And in this situation, players usually use spread to just quickly, spread them up. And with P shooter, you have to aim to each of them. So basically, what makes it harder. But what I like about P shooter is it has maximum distance. You can just straight shoot from the other side of the screen, and the EX move is really straightforward. It also goes straight, and it does up to 3 ticks, and it does triple damage. It's not super bad, but it's very inconvenient to use.
Yeah, I was just thinking because it only has 3 directions, like up, diagonal, and horizontal into it. Then you as the character have to move in order to get anything that slips between those 2 spaces.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll go on to mention Blasphemous. We'll be going on to that in just a sec, but I did wonder, for someone who can do these runs quote unquote more easily now, obviously with the experience you've got, if you had to give some advice to someone starting in Cuphead, or maybe even someone just moving from normal to expert nowadays, what sort of advice would you give?
As much as I hate is too strong of a word. As much as I hate Miss Chalice, but I would recommend to buy DLC. Yes, buying the DLC simplifies the Hitless run. You can get additional 5 coins. You can get Miss Chalice Astral Cookie, which gives you superpowers basically. So yes, do that. If you want to get around faster, utilize that.
Out of interest, is there anything you would change about the game after playing it for so long, or is there anything that you would alter or change in a way?
There is one moment, in the God Run I'm doing right now, there is one workaround we're using. There is no way of going through Funfair Fever Run and Gun level on this second aisle without taking damage and without charms. There is a huge mini boss in the middle of the level, which is a big hitbox basically. And the only thing you can do to not take damage is dash under it with Miss Chalice Invincible Dash or Smoke Ball. So this is the only This is the only exclusion from the rules. You have to buy Smoke Bomb just for this level, equip it, and unequip after, because there is no way. So I would call it a design flaw, because other than that, the game designed the way you can actually do beat it without anything, without visiting shop. So that's the only thing I would probably change. And also in Glamstone the Giant, I would just get rid of that unavoidable hit. The thing is, when they released the DLC, they were designing it with the Miss Chalice moveset in the mind. So you really can see that. There is a lot of situations where double jump is helpful and where the invincible dash can be used. So and it's understandable. They introducing the new player and they want player to incorporate it in casual or challenge or speedruns. For example, Miss Chalice also has a 4 HP, and for speedrunners, it's a huge plus. They can do 3 damage boosts instead of 2. So so they really thought about that, but it kind of lacking the possibility to enjoy it as a Mugman or Cuphead main player. So I would probably do something with the last Clumpstone phase. Mortimer is pretty nasty, but it's still doable. So it's just a skill ceiling, the high skill ceiling for Mortimer, Saltbaker, and Glumstone.
Out of interest, would you want because I've not heard any. I don't know if you have. I've not heard anything from the studio. I know they have a ton of Cuphead projects. Obviously, the show, the game, it's absolutely blown up. Would you want a sequel, or would you want something like a new original, maybe in the same sort of style from the studio next?
Well, Cuphead 2 would be a real banger, but they're working on a different project right now. They're actually, it's a family project. The MDHR studio, it's a family project with probably 2 or 3 invited illustrators or programmers. So actually, the fun fact is they live like 20 minutes from me. I'm like living in Toronto and they live like Oakville, like it's outskirts of Toronto. So I can basically go to them, knock at their door and said, hey, when is Cuphead 2? I'm not going to do that actually, but yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they'd love it if you're like playtester, because you've got more experience than anyone in that regard.
I actually saw them. There was a jazz festival in Toronto, and there was a Cuphead section, and it was so good. The Christopher Madigan, the composer of the soundtrack, and his jazz band was there, and that was probably the best concert in my life. That was so cool. And it was the only concert because after that, the COVID started and the pandemic. I think they made the next concerts eventually in London, but that's about it. So I was like on a very rare event. I'm really happy about that. And I saw them live. So I saw Chad Moldenhauer and Jared Moldenhauer and Maya Moldenhauer. So that was unforgettable. What I was talking about? Sorry, I sidetracked a little bit. Their plans. They said that they're working on a next project. They confirmed that DLC they released for Cuphead will be the only DLC. So the work on Cuphead 1 is done, fully completed, and now they're working on Zelda type game. I don't know what does that mean, because there are different types of Zelda games. So we have nothing at the moment, and they keep it secret. And how many years have been since the Cuphead DLC release? I think 2.5 or something. I hope they will drop some announcement maybe this year. I cannot say for sure, but I would love to see something from them and I'm sold already. I mean, their product was near perfect. Honestly, I consider it near perfect game. Like let's just say straight that it's my favorite game of all time. Since I'm playing it like already 5,000 hours, that's a lot, right? So I'm sure they will produce like something great and outstanding.
I mean, it could always be like those Steam reviews you see sometimes when it shows like someone has played like 300 hours and it's like not recommended, did not enjoy, but you still play.
The more you play game, the more you hate it, but also love it. Love-hate relationship.
Right, so let's talk about Blasphemous, which is one I'm a bit very much less experienced on. I've seen some Hitless stuff of it, but never really got too far on it just because of time. But I'd say that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing that's the one that you've put the most time in after Cuphead in terms of like damageless runs.
Yes, I have 1,100 hours in this game right now. I would say it's my second favorite game, yeah.
So just 1,100 hours, just like casual play then.
Yeah, something like that. Only 6 runs have been done. By the way, the very last run was done yesterday. I just got all bones plus Isidore%.
Congratulations, timing.
Thank you. Yeah, good timing.
So, for someone who may not be as familiar, because I think Cuphead is quite well known, for someone who may not be introduced, I feel like if someone's heard of Cuphead, they might have heard of Blasphemous. Well, a quick what it's about, what sort of platformer it is.
Well, I would say that the Blasphemous just becoming popular now, mostly because of Blasphemous 2, which got released like in 2003. And people starting like getting into that and seeing that it's actually a very, very good game. And I would say it's considering its price, and it's very valuable. Like if you wanna complete like 150% of the game, it takes you around 100 hours. So it's a lot. For example, for Hollow Knight to get all achievements, it took me like 150 hours approximately to get all pantheons, to get all binding stuff. So it's kind of the same thing here. So yeah, and it's really
It's like
great. It's really great game. It depicts the folklore of Andalusia region of South Spain, and it like resembles all the things like the music of that region, the tales of that region, and so on. And it's pretty brutal and bloody, for Metroidvania games, which is actually not exactly true. Even developers call Blasphemous 1 a non-linear action platformer. Basically, the idea is in Metroidvania game, you usually locked out of regions with movement abilities. So it's a movement ability gated interconnected world. This short explanation of what Metroidvania is. In
Something
Blasphemous,
like Hollow Knight or like
yes,
Ori or those sort of games.
Super Metroid, all that stuff, Symphony of the Night. But in Blasphemous, all those things are optional, and you actually can get to the credits without interacting with anything. You don't have to pick up any item or upgrade. It will be hard as hell, but it's so which makes it kind of branch out of the genre. It's like evolution of Metroidvania genre into something different. The second Blasphemous though is more of a Metroidvania rather than the first one. In second, you actually have to pick up like double jump or anything. Otherwise, you will not get to the last boss.
And what was it about this game or the franchise itself that made it your second favorite game or second most played after Cuphead?
Well, I don't know, the atmosphere and vibe and the attention to details is so great in this game. You know what I like about Blasphemous 1? It's really it has that, hopeless, brutal metal vibe where like everything is bad and everyone is like suffering, and the music and all that creates such a cool art. And I would say that this is the best pixel art in any video game. So they really put a lot of soul into that. And the music from Carlos Viola and all of that creates an awesome combination of that. And the gameplay is also super cool. And there are a lot of categories to do, and I'm just enjoying the runs. Honestly, I just relax on Blasphemous because Cuphead is so intense. You getting tired from a 45 minutes run so quickly. And in Blasphemous, you can just, basically all the rooms are scripted. The main difficulty comes from the bosses. So it's more chill and more relaxed experience for me, but at the same time, very enjoyable. Also about Blasphemous, I want to notice, there's a very good randomizer and PvP multiplayer and a lot of cool mods. And there's a whole mod framework to create your expansions and for the Hollow Knight, they made a great job with that, and that's also another thing which kind of makes it more replayable for me.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much mod stuff nowadays that what I should say is like quality mod stuff, like randomizers or bosses. Like there is so much good stuff being put out nowadays. Like, it's incredible to see what people can add on to a game, let's say.
Yeah, the boss rush mod. Actually, have you heard about Crypt Custodian, the new game which came out last year?
I feel it rings a bell, but I can't picture it in my head.
It's a top-down Metroidvania, and the thing they did is they added native randomizer into the game. Once you finish the game, you can choose randomizer from the main menu, and I think that's really cool. And I would love it to be a standard in the future. Honestly, if I was a developer,
so the game
the game has a randomizer in it without any mods. You don't have to put that.
Interesting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I expect maybe in the future there will be good etiquette around developers to release game and give you a speedrun tool, debug mode, randomizer, mod framework, and all that type of stuff. Like in Celeste, there's like speedrun tool. You can put on timer, and it's accepted on speedrun.com. So I love to see that, attention to details and that, spirit developers do, in terms of trying to connect to their community and raise, the speedrunners or challenge runners. And I think that's pretty cool. And good developers should work towards that, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's a big aspect of a lot of the indie community, of that sort of interaction with the audience and the players, I should say, and incorporating those things and not going against it, because obviously I don't want to mention companies, but I know some who have gone out of their way to patch things or remove things once exploits have been, certain speedruns I remember have been patched after there was a big community event or something like that, and it's I find it very strange that they go
Yeah.
against their own fan base, like, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, also the minimum they should do is to talk about fan base. Let's not raise the team cherry, here then with their radio silence about Silksong. I don't like to remember about that, but yeah.
This is probably going to age poorly, but just in the last couple of weeks, there was some. I didn't read too much into it, but there was like a picture on an alt account from one of the developers that was cake, and then there was a date came out, and then it was like.
I don't know. At this point, it feels like they're trying to humiliate us in the brutal way possible. So yeah, I honestly stopped waiting for Silksong. It comes out when it comes out. So yeah, I just don't put any expectations into that.
Yeah, I've been in that position for like a year, and I know a lot of people who are big fans are like in that same position. It's just like, okay, we've done the theorizing, we've done the the writing, the notes on the wall. I can't remember what the actor's name is, but that meme where he's got all the stuff on the wall with the wires and the things going.
Yeah.
Okay, if it's this date, it's this date, it's this date. But now it's just like, okay, we'll just relax. We'll hear when we hear, and we'll cross fingers until then.
I think that's the best everyone can do. Yeah.
I think I see a similarity to do with specifically the bosses between like Blasphemous and Cuphead. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Is unlike say the Dark Souls series or certain games in this Souls series, is there are very few bosses that are cheesable or by which you can get overpowered for. Virtually none in Cuphead, but there are some at the start who are just so easy that you don't have to worry about. So I was wondering, what approach do you take to learning these bosses when each one of them has to be learned? Like you can't go get a overpowered spell or go away and get overpowered or level up.
I put a lot of efforts into routing. So there's a very good interactive map for Blasphemous, and I use it a lot whenever I do route. I know which well, not charms, it's called rosary beads, but the idea is the same as charms from Hollow Knight. I see which one I should get, which abilities would be helpful. For example, the last run I was doing was all bones, and it's basically just collecting all 44 bones in the game. It's just collectibles which give you some money, and at some point they give you access after 30 bones to the Isidora, which is one of the hardest bosses in the game. It was added with the last DLC. And when I was doing all bones, Lekevka, another very talented Blasphemous runner, told me, why don't you do Isidora since you have access to that? I'm like, no way. And you know what? I ended up just adding her to split, and it was the worst struggle for me. It ended up for me having PV1 with a hit on hers multiple times. That was multiple times. But eventually I've done it. So and the fact that she was in the split made me add an additional extra 15 minutes to the run to pick up more sword upgrades, to pick up better magic, and so on. So basically, I've added a bunch of stuff just to be able to beat her consistent. And yeah, what I do usually to learn bosses is I record myself. I use debug mode as much as possible. I record myself, see what I'm doing. I'm replaying it on slow speed, writing down all the patterns, and all that stuff. You probably do a lot too when you learn the bosses. And what I would say that was a similarity between Blasphemous and Cuphead is you can call them bullet hell games. Yes, not everywhere in Blasphemous there is bullet hell, but some bosses definitely give you the situations where you have to do crazy stuff and try to dodge a lot of different projectiles and stuff. Yeah, and Blasty, you probably know Blasty. Oh, of course, you had a podcast with him. He played a bunch of 2D platformer games. He runs a lot of bullet hell games, and he also done Souls. And he said that usually in Souls games you focus on a couple aspects at once. You have to do precise dodge roll. You have to watch out what the boss doing to be able to run away, so you don't get into the radius of explosion or something like that. And usually in 2D platformers, there are much more variables in the formula. You have to pick up 3 things at once and see what they're doing. So that's probably the aspect which Souls runners who try 2D platformers can get adapted to. For example, I see many soul runners actually trying Cuphead, and that warms my heart. And I see which things make them struggle the most. And yeah, this is the aspect that I would say it's more reactive. I can't say
Yep.
Cuphead in any way harder. Like, it's harder in some way, right? But you cannot just compare these games because they're different genres and require different set of skills. But you definitely need to like change your mindset while you're trying that. Or if you are, let's say, Cuphead runner, you going into the Dark Souls series, it takes for you different, like you have to just change your mind about what you're doing. So, and that's very interesting aspect. And I can see that a lot. People from Souls try and platformers and vice versa. And that's very interesting to watch.
Yeah, I would agree what you said there about the reactive aspect of Cuphead, Damageless runs, because thinking about it, I would think that in Souls or Sekiro, or I should say like from the From Software games as a whole, really, is, to my mind, very much pattern recognition. And obviously there is reaction within that. But in some cases, within Cuphead, I imagine Blasphemous as well, there are moments where it's just on the screen and you have to react to it. There is an aspect, obviously, of pattern recognition, but I feel that's more prevalent in the From Software games.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought then, which is great.
Don't worry about it.
Because it just crossed my mind. It wasn't a DLC recently released for Blasphemous 2 that just crossed my mind then.
Yeah, it was. And actually, it was not very good. But after the backlash they got, there were a lot of glitches, there were a lot of cheeses. For example, the last DLC boss, you can just cheese him, like literally do one move if you figure it out. And it becomes not like the worst boss ever. And they actually, this time they listened and they released patch fairly quickly, like in a month, fixing pretty much all the issues, which is really good. Also, the NG Plus in Blasphemous 2 wasn't as good as in the first one. So the first one, basically you start from the start and you have everything. You have all the abilities unlocked, you have all the rosary beads, you have all the prayers, and you can just do some crazy stuff like right straight away. But in NG Plus of Blasphemous 2, they made you just naked again without anything, and you have to just go through everything again, but with bigger difficulty. And of course, players were expecting something like in Blasphemous 1, and there was a backlash about that. And they quickly came up with a solution where they actually bring everything back and make this an optional restriction. You can start the game, and there are a bunch of restrictions you can choose from, which are penitences, called penitences. And one of them was that penitence where you lose all your items. So they made that kind of genius solution to that situation, and they made a good job after that. But on the start, I didn't have good impression other than the bosses. The bosses were actually amazing. I mean, they remain unchanged, and overall it's a good DLC. But I would say they introduced the engine C. There were like engine B, which was bad engine A, which was like true engine at that moment, and now they like showed us the canon engine, which I would say a bit forced. So I wouldn't rate DLC of Blasphemous 2 very high right now, maybe 6 out of 10. But with the patches and everything, they might raise it a little bit. Yeah, but the base game was better than the DLC. That's what we can say.
But at least it's also positive that they did take that feedback into account to go, okay, we've sort of made a whiff of things here, so we'll add a few things back, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I still had fun. I was amazed of how good DLC is, but after a while, when I started doing like NG Plus again, I started noticing many annoying things, and at this point, I was very frustrated at some point. And the good thing they did in Blasphemous 2 compared to Blasphemous 1 is whenever you fall onto the spikes or abyss, you don't die immediately. And with NG Plus, they added that restriction back, like you can choose to die, and that frustrated me a lot. The platforming, I would say it's not the best part of Blasphemous games. It's pretty clunky. I would say gameplay built more around the boss fights and the area clearance. But yeah, being able to just die immediately made me very frustrated. But I chose it upon myself, so I'm not here to complain, right? But I'm still complaining.
Yeah. It's all good. So would you recommend like Blasphemous as a game that
Oh,
someone who may have played Cuphead or?
I absolutely recommend Blasphemous Gate. Everyone should play that. It has its flaws. It's not perfect. Same for Cuphead.
Same as any game, isn't it?
Yeah, but I love Blasphemous very much, and it's very often on sale. You literally can pick it up for $5 once 4 months or five. Like once every 4 months, there is a sale, and you can just spend some pennies and just get it, which is a super good experience.
And like a lot of indie games, I think it's on Switch as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
so
actually, I bought it on Switch first. I beat the game with the Switch Pro controller. I'm like a keyboard first player, but I also beat it on controller. I mean, I do gamepad sometimes too, but yeah, mostly if I see the Metroidvania game or some cool platformer, I try it on keyboard. Unless there is like a mechanic which requires from you to aim 360. In that case, it's not very convenient to do it with keyboard, and I switch to gamepad. But Blasphemous plays well on gamepad and keyboard just because there's like 4 ways movement. Like in Cuphead, there's 8-way movement, diagonals, and horizontal and vertical, and it's perfect for keyboard. When I want to shoot diagonal, I just hold like up and right or something. But yeah, if there's a game which requires you to just aim like precisely to choose angle, it's unplayable on keyboard completely.
Focus on those two, but these aren't obviously the only runs you've done. Done Hollow Knight, Celeste, Animal Well recently. Correct. Is there any of those and others of course? Is there any others that stand out to maybe not to the same degree as the first two, but something that you really enjoyed whilst you were doing it or would go back to?
I got the run for Haiku the Robot. If you heard about that game. I would say
I saw the trailer.
Yeah, it's really good. I would say it feels like a younger brother of Hollow Knight. The guy was very inspired with Hollow Knight series, and it has the chip system, which is basically charms. It has pantheons. Like it's like a really huge homage to Hollow Knight, but it's kind of mini game, and I would say the first playthrough usually takes for people like 5-ish hours or something like that. If you want to go completionist, it can take like up to 12, but it's very cool and it's very atmospheric. It provides some challenge, not as huge as, for example, if you wanna compare any percent of Hollow Knight and Haiku, of course Hollow Knight will take you way more time. But Haiku is a decent challenge for like starting Hitless runners. And I usually recommend people to start their Hitless journey with this game. And actually, I have one dude, my friend, who got his first Hitless run was a Haiku, and now he just recently done Blasphemous. So yeah, I can see people can just do this as an intermediate level challenge, and it's really nice. It's a solo dev project, which is also cool. The guy was working like several years on this game, posting the progress on Twitter and so on. And it's nice seeing people accepting his project. It's not very popular, but if you know Zyrop21, yeah, of course you know Zyrop. He was the first guy, I think, who have done True Engine. He already went for True Engine. Like he'd have done 90%, and then to upgrade it to True Engine, you basically just load the same save and add like 10 minutes or so. And that's what he did, and that's very cool. And probably he's the only one who has True Engine at this point. But yeah, I would love to go back to that game and get True Engine as well. Or maybe some other category like all bosses and mini bosses or something like that. It actually can have like all these categories Hollow Knight has, like all pantheons, like got home percent kind of type. So it's very much looking like a cool game to be added to, let's say, Team Hitless pool.
So Haiku is Haiku, isn't it, the robot?
Yes, that one.
Pretty much everything we spoke about today has been indie games. Do you reckon it's a part of that aspect, or is it just the games being so good themselves that is the appeal of them for you, or both?
Well, it's hard to tell. Usually, you just feel that you want to do a hitless run for the game, right? You just like the combat, you just like flow of the game, how you move through it, and there are many aspects, and you never know what you want to do. For example, have you heard of Nine Souls, the new Metroidvania game, which recently?
Yes, I've been recommended a few times. It's like a Hollow Knight Sekiro
mix
up and told about.
And I know the Sekiro runner Silksong who played this game, and he said that Nine Souls has a very short parry window compared to Sekiro, and it's harder to actually do it perfectly. And that
That must be
game,
very quick then.
yeah, you must be very quick, and it's actually very challenging. The last boss probably was so far like the hardest boss ever done. Like it took me like 8.5 hours or something to fully beat it for training. That was crazy. And yeah, I think I would love to do a hitless run of that game in the future. I saw some dude, Evian, I think his name, getting the boss rush recently. Like basically, I just joined his stream and he was on his way to get in the run and he got it immediately. I was disappointed. I was expecting for him to do more attempts, to be honest, but he got it. So yeah, I would love to start with boss rush and eventually do 80%. It's one of the games I see myself running. It's really good. I would say it's one of the best games of this year. So basically, not this year. It's already 2025. I completely forgot
Yeah,
about
so
it.
yeah.
Yeah, but for 2024, I would say the best games for me, probably first place will be either Animal Well or Nine Souls. So yeah, definitely gonna go to Nine Souls and do some challenges for that.
Animal Well, if I'm not wrong, is the one that I can't remember the YouTuber's name.
Well,
Donkey, is it?
Animal Well, I would say more of a puzzle Metroidvania, and the main challenge is some platforming sections. Some of them are like can be tough. I wouldn't say it's a game suitable for hitless runners a lot. It's just I liked it that much that I decided to do 2 runs for it, and I like the puzzle aspect of it, and it's also solid a project. The guy was working on it 7 years or something. And the fun fact about this game is its weight is 33 megabytes. So he made his own
Wow.
engine and it's super optimized. And there's a fun fact when he posted it on PlayStation Store, they require from every developer to get a 4K screenshot. And the screenshot, like and the game together, were like 100 megabytes. So screenshot was bigger than the game.
Pretty impressive, to be honest.
Yeah, that's also a very cool game. I would highly recommend. And yeah, but don't expect like any combat from it. It's basically solely puzzle and platforming, but very enjoyable still experience. And I might get back to that. I got any percent intro engine for it, and I might get the last engine as well.
I think we mentioned a couple of times in this, and one say overall in indie games is so many of the games have such memorable soundtracks.
Yeah.
I remember certain tracks in certain big games, but in terms of overall, in terms of like indie games like Hollow Knight, Celeste, Cuphead, they all have such unique and full soundtracks that are just great and memorable.
Well, sound is a very important aspect for me. So basically, all the games I like should have like good soundtrack. And if you like, of course, Cuphead is just a remarkable like jazz soundtrack. And when the game just came out, it was on the top one of jazz like leaderboards at this point, and it's really good. Like there are talented artists, the best talented jazz musicians from all over the Canada were like gathered together to produce it, and I think it's just just masterpiece. Like the whole like game together with art and the gameplay and music, it's all masterpiece for me. Of course, Blasphemous has amazing, I would say medieval like with some notes of metal in it. Soundtrack by Carlos Viola, very talented Spanish composer, which I also really adore. Celeste, like without any doubts, one of the best like soundtracks like in video game industry. You can agree with me probably. Lena Raine,
Definitely.
Lena Raine, a very talented musician. Hollow Knight, yeah, like Christopher Larkin. What else you can say? Basically, like I look at basically when I choose the game to run, this is huge aspect for me. And as people noticed, I run games with the original music. I saw many runners just turn it off and just put their like playlists in Spotify.
Playlists, yeah.
I prefer to just play the game as original as it like supposed to be. That's like my passion. Also, I tend to do as little glitches as possible, so the game is played intended way, like was the developers were thinking of. It's kind of I'm trying to respect the game devs in that regard. I don't know. It's just a flex maybe for me to just make it as authentic as possible, so people who watch my runs can experience the game as if like they were playing there themselves. And I think it's a very important part for me for how do I understand this process.
It's definitely a big factor. Obviously, everyone has their own personal rules. Everyone can like choose how they want to approach a run, but it does feel like just approaching it from a sense of not introducing glitches seems the best way to get the most out of a game. Like for instance, like Elden Ring, you doing the full run, doing it properly, it's going to be a big sense of achievement. If you went and did the zip line 4 minute run kind of thing,
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't feel the best afterwards, would you?
Yeah, that's one of the aspects I like about Hitless runs is you don't break the game completely. It plays the intended way most of the time because usually when people like trying to like the haters trying to hate you in some way, they say, "Ah, I saw what you did. You skipped that. Try not skipping that." And that's why like I'm going that path when I'm trying to be as least cheating as possible. You know what I mean. Like it's not like
Yeah, yeah, sure.
cheating, but I'm trying to make it harder for myself. I'm very big fan of adding restrictions which are not in the category, and for some like Cuphead categories, for example, I just add something like, for example, collect all coins, though it's not required, or I don't
Mm.
know, or I don't use like a specific move, or I like to do the dashless runs for Cuphead. It's basically you unbind the dash move and you try to
Mhm.
beat the game hitless with jump and just moving and shooting. So it adds additional restriction, but it's very fun. It plays like a different game, and that's what I enjoy about it. So I try to make it as hard as possible for myself because I think that hitless is philosophy is about to just overcome yourself and try not
Mm.
to make shortcuts. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean I completely ignore some shortcuts or like skips. No, not really. But at the same time, I'm trying to be as authentic and in respect to how the game was done and was supposed to be
Mm.
played.
Yeah, because the goal of the run is to do it hitless, isn't it? Like the goal is you can put your own restrictions in it, but the thought behind making sure this is the most efficient or best route in order to complete that goal doesn't mean you have to fight every single enemy that's in your path just to say, "Oh, I fought every enemy in my path," which some commenters may
Yeah,
say on
exactly,
certain videos.
exactly.
Like there is the thought behind of I have meticulously planned this part of the run in order to avoid that. That's took effort, not necessarily just go in, okay, I shall fight these 5 enemies. No, I've managed to find a way to get around them. Like they both require
Yeah.
effort. Just one's easily just go, oh, this doesn't count because of this.
Yeah, the same goes to my last Blasphemous runs where I supposed to just collect all bones and just go and end the game. But instead it became the working towards just killing the totally optional and unnecessary boss, which was the hardest
Mm.
split in the run, and I don't know, I had fun with it. It's just
Yeah.
I like to make my life more complicated.
Probably should have mentioned. I mean, I guess it wasn't really needed, but so you stream all of these games, don't you? All these challenge runs, I should say.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I prefer like I don't think I have at least one offline run. I want it to be as much. I wanted to have as much proof as possible that I've done it hitless. I have input tracker. I go live all the time. I do it, and you actually can see that I'm doing it myself. So yeah, I'm not being like afraid of accusing of cheating. But I don't know. I just want people to see that I'm like as much open as possible.
So you've been doing streaming for a good while now, from
Yeah.
like when I was looking up. Is there something apart from that aspect
Oh,
of
like
saying,
not
okay,
Hitless
people can see
Run.
it?
Well, recently I started Elden Ring, for example. I've done I think 2 streams and I've been in there 6 hours or so. And honestly, I don't know. I feel frustrated so far. I don't have too much experience with Souls game. It will be safe to say that I don't have like experience at all. I played Bloodborne for 3 hours. I got to Father Gascoigne and got my ass kicked. What else? I did some Sekiro also. I like 3-ish hours. I went into some memory and also got my. So I have very little experience with Souls games, and that's probably why. For now, Elden Ring feels for me like some Skyrim type of RPG game, but I wanna just be patient with it and learn to love the game because I can see that like people who surround me recommend me all the Souls games, and of course, I will go through all Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and so on in the future. And yeah, I like doing first playthroughs on stream. And actually, when some cool game comes out, I just stream it, and But some of the games I want to have intimate experience with. Let's say I just play off stream. So yeah.
Yeah.
I would say main goal to stream challenge runs, and sometimes I stream some first playthrough. So like 80% of the time, I want it to be a challenge run on my Twitch channel.
I think I saw, was it Prince of Persia maybe, or it might be?
Oh yeah, I've done the Prince of Persia on stream too. Very good game, but I would say it's a bit way too long. Like at some point, I started feeling that it's abusing the hospitality, you know. And but I'm not saying this, but no, it's a great game. Very cool mechanics, very good movement, and you can see it's well made and polished game since it's AAA project from Ubisoft. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot, but I don't think I will ever do Hitless runs. It feels for me way too long. And to be honest, I don't know. I still don't have tolerance to do long runs. I know people doing like 6+ hours runs and so on, and I find it fascinating. And honestly, the idea of doing some The God Run 3 in the future, maybe in some years, feels terrifying to me. I don't know how people do this, to be honest. When I started doing runs, I was doing 45-minute long Cuphead runs, and I was already like super tired with it. But for example, Blasphemous 2 was the longest run I've ever done. It was 2 hours 40 minutes, and it kind of taught me how to be more like tolerant. And now I think I can like do long runs. The thing is, I've done Hollow Knight 90%. You probably heard about that. And I was doing True Ending for a while, and I even got to PB10. But I got really burned out with it. It felt so long, and the beginning of the run when you get to Dream Nail felt super boring. Like you just walk in for 17 minutes until you fight Hornet and actually get the dash, the Mothman Cloak.
Yeah.
And at some point, I felt that I just can't do that anymore, and I dropped it for good. But I feel that now after I was doing Blasphemous 2 and I kind of got used to longer runs. I feel that I can go back to that, and it's not even that long. For example, the last run for Blasphemous took for me 2 hours 23 minutes, and Hollow Knight Trending I feel like was going towards 2:08 or something, 2:10. So I might go back to that. But you know what's funny? When Blasphemous 2 came out, there was a race between several people to get world's first. That was Erlope, me, Black Devil 18, and Lekefka. We were all working towards that. And when I first done my baseline runs, I was very upset because it was 5 hour-ish, and I was thinking, no, I can't do that. I just can't do that. But I kept pushing myself because we were in the competition, and it was funny. Of course, there was friendly competition. We all respect each other, and we are all good friends, and we all were wishing everyone to get this run. So there's no envy or anything between us. And eventually, I got it down to 2:42, which was the fastest probably across all runs, Hitless runs, which has been done for Blasphemous 2. And after this point, I was like, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I can tolerate 3 hours-ish. And now I feel that I do it on a regular basis. I can pick up some long category, and I'm not afraid of that anymore. Yeah, so...
What do you reckon the switch was? What did you find about the Blasphemous run that made that longer run easier, quote unquote, or more manageable?
Well, at this point, we didn't have any completed runs, so we were all routing. And I was, trying to optimize it as much as possible. Optimizing your run is very important because, of course, Hitless run involves resetting all the time, and at some point it might become very frustrating if you just do resets after reset, especially late in the game. And the shorter run, the better. But at the same time, you want to make it not super difficult, because sometimes when you just optimize it too much, you have to take some risky strats to just it basically makes it more difficult. So you need to balance it out. So that's actually a very interesting thing, and no one has the single opinion about how to properly do that. But so you just go as you feel.
Yeah, in the runs, there's got to be a little bit of spice in there, a little bit of stuff to mix things up, because otherwise it's just some runs that at least I've done have become very monotone, very much you do X, Y, Z, A, B, C during the first half an hour, and if you reset after that, it's just oh no, I've got to do that half an hour again and again and again.
That's true. But I started a new category for Blasphemous, and now I'm trying to experiment and make it a bit speedrunny, if you know what I mean. I'm just running through some sections as if I have like health to spare, and that's a new experience for me, and I want to see how it works out. And I might just drop this idea, but I just want to see how much time I can save, and maybe I can incorporate some risky strats in the future if I see that they're not as risky as I thought they would be.
I think what I just want to add before we go into like the last few quick questions is mentioned throughout this to do with each game they've done Hitless about. There is always other people to talk to collab with, to discuss, to learn from. And I think although Hitless runs is eventually a solo endeavor in order to like grind it and reset and get yourself through those runs, a lot of it is built on like pillars of like collaboration, of learning from like the community of people who have learned this strat or done this strat or know this way to do it better. And I think that's maybe missed if people are not as familiar with Hitless. That is a very big collaborative effort
to
do these
absolutely.
runs.
We always help each other with with strats and stuff, and that's what I like about Hitless community. I don't know, it's probably most non-toxic community ever, because I heard a lot of things like holy wars in speedruns community. Either it's Celeste or Hollow Knight or any other. So there's a big competition there, and people can easily become toxic and maybe disagree with you with a lot of stuff. And the grind for world record, and I don't know, it also creates very unhealthy atmosphere. Not everywhere, but that's what I saw.
Yeah, of course.
And I would say Hitless community, I was amazed when I met Team Hitless, and it's crazy how just people come to your stream and just help you, just trying to help you as much as possible. Even if you race for world first, you still go and you help, and that's what I like about it. Very passionate people and very friendly and eager to help all the time, and that's amazing. That's what I like, because literally no competition. Only maybe when world's first there's a little bit of competition, but other than that, you can just feel free of pressure and feel free of hate, if you can say that, and that's awesome. And collaboration is a big part of it. I always, when I route, for example, on stream, and there are like runners in the chat, I just ask them, what would you do here? Can you please help me to find some strat? For example, I got stuck in my last run, and I asked some guys like Kefka and Trolldisen to help me with Blasphemous, and they just posted some videos, and I just, I'll pick that up, and I just picked that up, the strat, and it worked perfectly. So I think that's the coolest part, that you actually want to help each other to achieve your goals.
Yeah, I think the only time there is a bit of heat is when there's rule disagreements, but we've already gone over that.
Yeah. Rules is a big part of when people disagree, but other than that, it's very friendly.
So we're going to go into some quick questions. So these are going to be like just quick rapid fire kind of ones.
All right.
Could have worded that better, but well. If you had one piece of advice for someone new to the Hitless scene, whether they're going to go into Cuphead or they just joined and going to go into another game, is there anything that you would say, okay, this is something you should focus on, or a piece of advice?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't give up. It's very easy. If you just keep doing what you're doing, eventually you'll get it. It's very simple formula, but it works like perfect. Like if you see that when you're doing hitless runs, there are bad days and good days where nothing like helps or works. But if you just keep going, and you eventually get it, that's the only thing you can do. And that's actually very powerful thought if you think about it. You can apply it to anything in your life. So either you're just applying for jobs, anything. Just don't give up and keep doing what you're doing. Have perseverance, have patience, and everything works out in your favor. That's probably a very important skill to learn if you want to be a good hitless runner.
It also just made me think of what we were talking about earlier to do with speedrunning, whereby in speedrunning there is always that moving goalpost, potentially depending on how competitive the category is. But in Hitless, it's just you and the game and that one goal.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if you that goal doesn't shift, it's like if you continuously learn and improve and continue at it, then that goal's going to get closer eventually.
Exactly.
If one game could be released tomorrow, either an announced game or one that hasn't been, but it's just a remake or a sequel that you'd want to be released, which game would it be?
Cuphead 2. Easy.
Simples.
Unfortunately, we won't see it any time soon. 7 years. That's my very optimistic, prophecy.
I mean, who knows? Whilst they're doing DLC, they might have just been tinkering off to the sides. Hopefully, it might be a bit.
I don't know. It took for them 7 years to produce the base game. I know they have like experience now, and actually the DLC took for them 2.5 years. And actually, it has more steals than the base game because they increased FPS 2 times. And for this game, they draw like by hands. It means that they should draw like more steals than in the base game, like with hands. So it's kind of big. So probably with more experience, it might be happen earlier. But let's not make assumptions. Let's just let them cook.
If you can think of one, what would you say is your most hyped or fond memory on stream or of a run?
What is my most hyped memory on stream? I think when I got my first Hitless run, I couldn't sleep. I literally didn't sleep the whole night. It was such a remarkable feeling, and it was basically what I was the third. That was the third ever Cuphead Hitless run, and I was amazed that I achieved something in my life which is kind of like pretty huge, and I couldn't believe that I actually done it. And it felt so weird because what I was doing is I was just failing, and at some point I just succeeded, and I couldn't believe it. And I liked the feeling as much that the guy got addicted to it, and here we are. I'm like 40 last runs already.
I think it's the hook for it. I mean, it was at least the hook for me as well. It's something tangible that you've dedicated to learning, to doing, to practicing, and something tangible of I've done that, I've completed that, I've proved that I can do this difficult game, which may seem a bit dramatic to some people, but it's a goal that you managed to accomplish, just the same as a race or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think, as from the final question of today, what are the future plans of Muckworm?
Well, I have created a roadmap for 3 of my main games. It's Cuphead, Blasphemous, Celeste, and I'm going towards the ultimate runs in every game, and maybe I will be able to get at least for one of the games. Because for Celeste it's been done. Rick Fernella has completed like 100% run first, and 202, but that's what I'm going towards to. I'm planning to get through all Celeste categories. Right now, I haven't done any percent, and I'm at PB10 in all full clears, and through PB3 at all C sides. So the next run after this one will be all B sides. Then I'm going to do Farewell Golden, and then all Hearts, True Ending, and 100%. So that's the roadmap for Celeste, so I'm going towards that, and maybe in some years I will be able to do this. For Cuphead, this also was done. Bafanda Dell, if you know this guy, has done the Cuphead God Run. Basically, the Cuphead God Run was done by Sublime himself, who created this category, and Bafanda. And Bafanda have done the upgraded category with DLC, which I consider the hardest ever run, which was completed for Cuphead, and I'm going to do that. And for Blasphemous, I'm planning to do 150%. It's basically multi-run, where you beat it on NG and 3 times on NG Plus to get 3 items. And that's how you get 150. Okay. And that's probably the ultimate goals for me. What's coming after, I don't know, but I don't think this goals will take for me less than like 2 or 3 years. It's pretty huge. So, I have some content to show.
To keep you busy.
Yeah, to keep me busy. I don't know, maybe I'll dive into speedruns. I don't want to say bye to Cuphead when I'm done with everything. I've done some speedruns in the past, and I might just, learn any percent. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? We'll see, but I'm not planning to stop streaming anytime soon, so yeah.
And if people wanted to check you out, where would they be looking?
Twitch.tv/Muckworm. Please come in. I'll tell you everything you need to know. Or you can just go to YouTube, also a channel called Muckworm. It's easy to find me, and you can just watch my runs there. And I think that's about it. Yeah. Please welcome and enjoy what I'm showing you.
And of course, all links to everything will be in the description for whichever platform people are listening on. So that's been it. So I appreciate taking the time out for this today, Muck. I hope you've had a good time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Loci. It was really fun, and thank you for having me, and I enjoyed it very much.
There's no problem at all. It's been awesome, and I hope everyone who is listening has enjoyed it as well. And I hope everyone's having a great rest of your morning, day, or evening, depending on what time you're listening to this at. But yeah, that's going to be us for today. So we'll catch you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed that conversation and want to hear more with amazing guests, be sure to head over to youtube.com/@nohitpodcast or wayofloci.com/nohitpodcast.